Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about My Hero Academia Season 5, Episode 15. Almost forgot the season. Hey everybody, so we're going to go through the episode. It's going to be a nice little review here. Just to let you know, I am working on the differences comparison for this episode and the previous episode. I'm just a little bit behind because I'm trying to do all the other anime stuff I have to do. And then I'll sit down and do that and the opening breakdown. Just hold on for a little bit longer and the videos will be up hopefully this week or next week. Anyway, let's get into this particular episode of Hero Academia. I think we end up doing quite a lot. So quick recap. We go through the villains and Toga and everyone else kind of sitting around a table getting a debrief from Hawks, finding out that Shigaraki is going to destroy everything. I still have my opinions about this. They have now given away the full surprise that the Villain Academia arc has. So now if we get into Villain Academia, there's no real stakes because a lot of the critical moments have already been spoiled by the fact that Toga and Twice are fine. In this scene, we also had the camera seeing the kid, and that's just showing the level of surveillance the villains have on their side. We had Hawks spying his own surveillance ability, which was really cool. That's telling us how he ultimately gets the information to give to the heroes in general. We get into Endeavor making sense of the message from Hawks. We get Hawks telling us why he needs to take time with this particular situation, that being that there's too many villains and he wants to make sure that if he goes to deal with this right now, they take everything out in one swoop. And also, again, you know, you want to talk about a hero-saturated society, but look at the amount of villains. If you have a villain-saturated society, do you really have a hero-saturated society? I love the question. Again, it's always cool to see that there's a great number of villains, but this is really jumping off from the point of there being like over 100,000, I believe. I always forget the number for that army. Anyway, we go through the whole process of Endeavor taking the kids on, and this process involved explaining why the work studies are happening, and this is ultimately the way the episode frames it is what makes Endeavor teach both Bakugo and Izuku, because if you look at it, like Burnin was saying that they were not going to get taught by Endeavor, so that's what we end up doing there. We then go through the montage on Hawks talking about how these kids are going to be insurance, and when you know what's happening in the current manga, that this whole insurance idea becomes really funny because of the way that it's positioned and because who the manga is actually about later on. It's very funny, very odd. Also, when you look back at it, that montage sequence also ignored some panels from the manga, which are pretty critical and honestly bad on the anime to ignore it. There is a panel specifically that would have been about Fuyumi. Fuyumi would have been in that slot of the montage of the kids. The Fuyumi panel in the manga was like a little bit of a foreshadowing that maybe she was going to show up. So it's unfortunate that they got rid of it here, honestly. But yeah, there was one of the montage shots that was expanded, specifically Momo's, to show who her hero was. I'm going to talk about that more in the changes video. But yeah, the montage itself was a little bit compromised, which is unfortunate because this is what the anime always does. They take away little moments that are actually really important. For instance, the Shinzo buildup, they take it away in the anime and then it makes it look like Shinzo just comes out of nowhere. Yeah, not very respectable, but we're about to go into a period where a lot of the anime's mistakes are about to come out and be a lot more in the forefront. So that's going to be, well, actually, for some people, they think this whole situation with the villains and the way the episodes are being adapted is a mistake already. So we are in a period of the anime like really having a critical, or the anime receiving critical reactions from the way they're doing things. Okay, the reason I keep bringing back the montage is because the montage is actually really important to give ideas about what was going on in the future. Anyway, after that we go into Izuku and Endeavor's moment, specifically the moment where Izuku was just talking about everything his quirk does and Endeavor was listening. That's going to be a bigger discussion point. We have Bakugo and Endeavor's moment, and this one's relevant just because Endeavor has an opinion about Bakugo formed in that instance. We then have Endeavor teaching them about field work, and here we have a focus on the idea of parallel processing. Overall, parallel processing, I think, is a really good thing. We're going to have more things to talk about there. Endeavor then shows off his propulsion ability that inspires Shoto. We then have Endeavor stopping the car, preventing a potential isekai situation. And then we have pretty much Endeavor's approach to learning, and then him pretty much telling the kids that they can afford to fail because he's going to be there to pick up the slack and all that kind of stuff. Overall, I think a solid episode. If you were to look at from that recap, what did we ultimately get? We got like set up at the beginning, and then we have pretty much just Endeavor and doing what the arc's about. That is teaching the kids to do stuff. Alright, cool. That was the recap. Now let's talk about the little points. First off, I want to let the anime viewers know Dabi's stupid. Dabi has always been stupid. And this moment is another excellent Dabi moment. And you know the best thing about it? I love it when the anime itself or the story itself agrees Dabi's stupid. This is something that a lot of people don't seem to catch when they're in their fervor. But no, Dabi's stupid. But like when you look at this scene in particular, it becomes even a little bit sillier, just because of what exactly was this guy watching. So the whole, okay, so first you have to understand there's a narrative purpose for what's going on, and then there's how you get to what narrative wants you to say. And this is usually where problems occur in other stories. If you, let's say the author comes in with an idea, oh, I have a conclusion, this character needs to have a conclusion A about character B, right? Now, that conclusion needs to happen for the story to happen. How do you get the character to have that conclusion is the problem. Because sometimes you will have a situation where a series of events will occur, and you'll look at that and be like, no, how did this person develop conclusion A when they should have had conclusion C? That doesn't make sense. And now, see, the thing is, you have to be really, really bad to be creating a fundamental disconnect between a conclusion and the process to the conclusion. You're more likely to see it in fan fiction, in all honesty, but sometimes it does slip its way through to actual works, because especially, well, it depends. In light novels, if it's going on the internet, you might see the problem occur there. If it's got Katakoa or some other editor like looking at it, they might be able to spot it. On the internet, if you're doing like web novels, ideally your readers are going to spot it if you have a popular novel, because then they're going to like berate it. But when it comes to manga, because they have an editor too, but because of how hectic that situation is producing these things, some things might slip by, or some things they might just be like, okay, you know what, we need to get the conclusion out there, let's just, you know, slap it on. And they might not notice the problem until later, which is unfortunately an issue. But when it comes to this one, it looks a little bit sillier. So Dabi ultimately needs to put himself in a position where he's underestimating the kids. But in context, does that actually work? The way that they're watching the scene, right? And the angle of the camera makes it look like they saw exactly what we saw. At least when it comes to this perspective. Dabi says that they haven't grown much. And my question is, like, what does growth look like when one of the people in that group starts off with having the ability to capture so many villains in ice that he was worried about giving them frostbite? Like, this line is nonsensical. What does Dabi want in this situation, actually? Because from what we saw, Endeavor takes down Star Servant, the old man, and then the hobos jump him, and then instantly Bakugo, Shoto, and Izuku are right there, like within moments. There's even ice across the field. They're about to jump them, and then Hawks comes in and kill steals. As far as I'm aware, those other hobos were not allowed a moment to attack Endeavor. How could they, when in the previous episode we saw that the kids were right there? No, like, this is insane. What exactly was he hoping for? For the kids to be able to take them out? But they're already right there. Like, whatever lack of ability the kids showed here, Endeavor's shown it too. So this is like the bigger problem. How exactly is this man talking about growth? What does he want them to do? Does he want Shoto just make an ice wall and freeze them all immediately? Shoto can do that. Shoto can most certainly do that. Like, we've seen the things that Shoto can do otherwise. And again, Hawks is happy that, like, the man that Dabi is doing this, but Dabi's an idiot. So this is why Dabi is just able to just jump in there and say, oh yeah, no, they haven't grown at all. No. See, like, the metrics here aren't clear. Like, this is the problem. Especially for these three start the game being effective. The line itself is nonsensical. When you see the line and the way it happens, it's nonsensical as well. They kept up with Endeavor. That's the scariest thing. Endeavor came out through an alleyway. The kids come in from different directions. Or sorry, from one different direction. Nah, man. Nah. The fact that they're keeping up with Endeavor is already the noteworthy thing, as this episode tries to make a point of. Like, it's the fact that they're keeping up with him that is the good thing. Yeah, no. this whole thing is compromised, and really the only thing that comes out of it is it makes you wonder just how insane Dabi is. And the good thing about it is that the episode agrees Dabi's insane. Yeah, nah, like, and this also kind of speaks to like the issue with powers in Hero Academia. It's really hard to actually quantify what exactly like how do you quantify someone's growth in Hero Academia, right? And also, it's like Izuku is the epitome of growing fast. So, yeah, nah. What exactly are we criticizing here? No, we're celebrating that Dabi is in fact an idiot, and that the anime and the story maintains that idea by having people confirm it for us, which is always valuable, but some people ignore. But we're also criticizing just the way that the situation is set up from the way they were looking at it. We're criticizing how that person thinks that they haven't grown much. Because like from our perspective, you know, if we see this shot in context, what's impressive here is that they're keeping up with the #1 hero. It would have been much more questionable if the kids were still, say, like around this spot. If they were over here before Hawk shows up, that'd be a little bit more questionable. But when you have Izuku here and Bakugo here, and Shoto's so involved that he's not even in the shop, but you have his ice, it's a completely different situation. Anyway, that's that point. I just love ragging on Dabi whenever I get the opportunity, and man, I got the opportunity there. Anyway, moving on to the next discussion point, I wanted to cover a particular line that we got. Winning over your base of teens and 20-somethings would be great for us. This is a pretty interesting line because it tells you character. When you have someone talking about 20-somethings and teens and winning a base, that's marketing speak. That's like politician speak. So just keep this in mind. This is actually a really interesting characterization line. Keep that in mind because it tells you about who exactly the villains have teamed up with. Moving on, another line, the students as insurance line. Now this line, I'm bringing up for the people who are also reading the manga. This line is just interesting. Like when you hear this line and you hear about these kids failing, or sorry, you hear about the heroes failing and the kids being insurance. What exactly do you understand from that, right? What are you thinking? Like, especially for Class 1A, alright, you're saying like, things are going to go down a few months, and you're saying that the kids are going to get like these few months to become insurance. What does insurance really look like? Does it mean that when the heroes fail, the kids come full front and center? Is that what you're meaning? Or like the kids are a backup plan? But what exactly does a backup plan do? Do they win? It's just, this line is interesting just with how it ultimately built into the current situation in the manga. And I'm not going to talk about it more there, but it's a funny line. And it makes it look like the kids were going to come into full force. You know, maybe they do, maybe they don't. Anime viewers, just if I was to say something, I would say like remember this line and remember the ultimate point of what the training for the kids was, because I think when Hero Academia ends, a line like this is going to be important just for evaluating what Hero Academia was about at the end of the day. This is probably going to be one of the critical lines here, because this is the line that justifies why exactly we have the kids off working with the pro heroes right now. So it is going to be a critical line for evaluating in general. Next thing I want to talk about, I just wanted to say that Burnin is really striking. I don't know, something about her, like her color palette and her energy. Just like she's actually been really fun to watch. I've actually really appreciated it. But with that said, I do want to talk about the Izuku and Endeavor stuff, and specifically Burnin's reactions to it. Like Burnin saying you understood him, you're not #1 for nothing. And it's just, this is an unfortunate situation because like if you're watching what Izuku is saying, I'm sure that the majority of viewers can understand what Izuku is saying. Like, what does it say about Burnin that she can't understand when Izuku's giving his rundown? Now, the thing here is that this is so nice because now if I criticize Burnin, the episode actually will back me up in it, because Endeavor makes an us versus them situation when he calls Izuku one of us. So, what's happening here, and this has always been an issue I think in general with Izuku, but like anytime someone makes fun of Izuku's self-analysis, they're really immature. I am actually really happy that Endeavor is a person who was able to understand everything Izuku said, because Endeavor shows the reality of the situation. This is serious. When especially for Endeavor's situation, Someone who's able to self-analyze to this degree is valuable because hearing what Izuku said, Endeavor has a full grip of the situation with Izuku. Think about how helpful it is for Endeavor to know exactly what the problem is for Izuku. No, it's 100% helpful. And the reason that Endeavor was able to understand what Izuku was talking about is because Endeavor knows the issue of being able to review himself. Endeavor knows pains, like, Endeavor, unfortunately for Shoto and his family, and unfortunately for Endeavor himself, Endeavor knows how much he sucks. Endeavor knows in every single way how much he sucks. That's why you have Endeavor's shot of him trying to bridge the gap between All Might. And ultimately, what's happening here is that when you see Endeavor understanding Izuku, and when you see Burnin making fun of the fact that Izuku was not understandable, this is a reflection of the dichotomy between people like Endeavor and people like Burnin. In other words, the people who are able to understand Izuku are most likely the heroes trying their best. In other words, the heroes putting in the effort are the ones most likely to understand Izuku and appreciate their weaknesses. This is interesting because when it comes to Hero Academia, All Might, as Endeavor isolates him, All Might is a person who just could do things, whereas Endeavor is someone who had to work with a quirk that gave him trouble, and he establishes this within the episode. All Might is the reason that a lot of heroes got complacent, and a lot of society got complacent. A lot of society's problems right now are the culmination, or they're the end result of what happens when you have someone like All Might around, making people think that they can afford to be lesser than they currently could be. And look, you can try and argue this point with me, but everything in the anime is about this point. When you have the previous episode during the interview training, and you had Midnight and Mount Lady there, right? Remember what Aizawa said? The current heroes are being pulled up by the current number one, and Endeavor is the pinnacle of hard work. When you look at Endeavor here, this episode is Endeavor supremacy. This episode is showing just to what degree Endeavor goes to be able to do his job. We see him just take out a purse snatcher, like whatever. We see how much consideration he took into the thing when you have Izuku analyzing it with the whole fire blocking the way to go to the road. You then have Endeavor just flat out being able to spot the one girl about to get run over by the van. He just goes in there and does it. Endeavor's results here are a manifestation of his efforts that he put in to try and take All Might out from the number one spot. And this is again why Hawks likes Endeavor, because while everyone else was complacent with the gap between them and All Might, Endeavor was trying to bridge it. So imagine if we didn't have a character like Endeavor right now in the current Hero Academia universe that has the highest case count. Well, Hero Academia universe already is pretty sucky with the amount of villains that are occurring. It would be even worse. And this ultimately brings me back to this situation with Burnin. Burnin says that understanding Izuku, like, no wonder he's number one. And like, yeah, it's very true. He wouldn't be number one if he was the kind of person that would ridicule Izuku for being critical on himself. No, like, if anything, it makes Burnin look even weaker. Like, when I look at this situation, Burnin is part of the problem with the current hero society. Everyone should be taking things that Izuku says seriously. Everyone should be able to hear what someone is saying and be able to think about what their weaknesses are. That's the difference between, well, I guess, for Burnin, like, she's a sidekick. That's the difference between a sidekick and a hero. And like within the heroes, that's the difference between a hero who you could tell has worked hard and is aware of their weaknesses versus a hero who's riding high. So ultimately, I really like this situation just because it paints clearly an us versus them type situation. And right now in Hero Academia, when you in post-stay in Hero Academia, where heroes are actually being compared and contrasted, and you're getting the ideal heroes and the trash tier heroes that Stain would take out, Burnin doesn't come out very good here. Now mind you, you also have to appreciate that this is part of the humor, but there's unfortunate implications. If Hero Academia didn't have a situation where there is a clear bad type of hero and a clear good type of hero, moments like this could be comedic, but it's ultimately not. Ultimately, this whole situation is a reflection of the current issues with hero society. Burnin represents the them in terms of just the people that don't care too much for self-analysis, and Endeavor and Izuku represent the us. That specifically the people who are being really critical with themselves and trying to improve. Now, mind you, we also have to keep in mind, because this episode also had Shoto putting Endeavor in his place, Endeavor's pursuit for All Might is also the cause of the situation with Shoto's family, and that should be appreciated. Like, there is such an idea of being critical on yourself leading to bad situations. And I mean, like with Izuku, we've seen it before too. Izuku's so hard on himself that it's led him to like really bad situations, like when it came to Night Eye, or when it came to like the very beginning of Hero Academia. It's not as if it's not as if working hard or being critical is a virtue. Like, that very quickly can go towards a negative end, and that should not be forgotten. But at the same time, Endeavor's efforts as a hero should be respected as well. You can't separate the professional's accomplishment from the failings of the father. In conclusion, to sum it all up, what does that scene ultimately say? It says that Izuku and Endeavor are more alike than they are dissimilar, and it also says that Burnin is probably not one of the people that Endeavor considers one of them. And probably also Burnin doesn't really have all that much analytical ability, and probably also lacks the ability to actually listen. And just to go into Hero Academia's use of comedy in general, because like the instinct is to give Burnin a pass on this one because it's comedic. And in other anime I would do it, but Hero Academia lost that that kindness in the second season. If you recall, back in the second season, they tied up Bakugo so he could receive his prize. They tied him up, they chained him up, and that was taken as a comedy moment, but then we had the villains taking that moment seriously, and that being the reason why they kidnapped Bakugo. When you have situations like that, yeah, the comedy and the seriousness, there's no longer a distinction. There's no longer like that little bit of wall, like, oh yeah, that's a comedic moment, you can't take it seriously. No. Hero Academia botched that from that one moment. So now everything, even when it's being played for comedy, has to be taken seriously. Like, that's just how it's gonna go. If you're gonna do that kind of shenanigan, that's just how it paints the viewing experience for Hero Academia later. Moving on, parallel processing is another point. I really liked how Endeavor brought up parallel processing. I really liked how he kind of compared it to driving. Parallel processing is a pretty neat little thing, and it's just pretty much Endeavor saying like, yeah, just learn to do things by instinct, because then everything else will come naturally. That's actually a really cool idea, and it's cool to see what exactly Endeavor is teaching Izuku, right? This is now the era of Izuku learning from Endeavor, and you know, Endeavor is probably the better teacher for Izuku than, say, All Might was. This is probably going to be better for Izuku in the long run. Now, there was something that Endeavor had said in these scenes where he said that heroes need to be able to do everything by themselves. So Endeavor here is speaking of an ideal that not many people are going to be able to, like, people aren't going to be able to do things by themselves. And, you know, you have to be careful here because Endeavor is supported by sidekicks. Those sidekicks are there specifically to help Endeavor be better. But you understand what he's saying. Like, in an emergency situation, a hero needs to be able to handle, like, the vast majority of things. Like, when you actually look at the situations people get into, that kind of breaks down. Like, this is the ideal that heroes want to be at, but this isn't going to be happening. Like, someone like Selkie is not going to be able to deal with every single situation. Someone like, let's see, Manuel, the one that works with Ida, he's not going to be able to handle every single situation. Mind you, like, when you go into this kind of line, what you end up with is heroes sacrificing themselves to try and gain another hero a few extra seconds. This is a very dangerous line in general. This is the ideal of heroism, but like the majority of heroes can't do this. Maybe only the top 20 heroes, if you're being very kind, are actually able to handle everything by themselves. But otherwise, you know, like, the entire system is built around the idea that heroes can't do everything by themselves. You wouldn't be in the team-up era of heroes if this was a true statement. Mind you, like, this is again speaking of the situation of, if things are going down, you need to be able to do it. But everything in Hero Academia tells us this is not the reality. Like, heck, even if you go back to the beginning of Hero Academia, like when Izuku and Bakugo were first attacked by a sludge villain, when you go back to that era, remember what happened? Those heroes were standing around waiting for a hero with a more suitable quirk to show up. So when you look at that situation especially, That's how you know this line is idealistic, and the vast majority of heroes are not meeting this criteria that Endeavor is setting out. But the fact that Endeavor himself sets it out is what tells you why Endeavor is so hardcore. He's hardcore because he's living by these kind of ideals. Oh, but again, this ideal is dangerous because it doesn't take into account how weak a hero is. And then, oh, I have Endeavor stopping the car. Well, you know, I have Endeavor stopping the car just because it was really impressive how cool Endeavor was. He also has a little line here where he talks about, like, you know, if you're too late to help someone, you're not going to lose points in an exam. You're going to get someone killed. And he makes that point as just being like, heroes shouldn't have excuses. Another one of the ideals of being a hero that Endeavor would espouse. Overall, those are my talking points for the episode. I think it was a really solid episode when it comes to talking points. I think also the character interactions were really good. Bakugo and Shoto have quite a few good interactions, and Endeavor and Izuku have really good interactions. Overall, this episode shows you what goes into being the #1 hero. And with Endeavor, now that you're even looking at it now again, it's more in Endeavor's words than it is in his actions. How aggressively someone needs to go to be someone like Endeavor. Even now, you can see where the problems show up here. Like the idealistic ideas that Endeavor throws out there. It's unfortunate that not many people can actually live up to these ideals. And it's going to be interesting seeing the future as we go into the next little bit of Hero Academia, with Hawk setting up this whole situation of there's going to be a massive army right around the horizon. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought down below. That's it for me. How long is the video? 30 minutes, almost as long as a regular Hero Academia manga review. But anyway, guys, yeah. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day, and keep an eye out for the bonus content for Hero Academia. Till next time, everyone.